this is just gonna be an excessively long video. I don't really want to make an excessively long video. I want to make only short videos, but I'm terrible at making videos, and there's no way for me to edit, and there's just nothing I can do. So the best thing I can do is make a really long video, and then in there, hopefully I get around to everything. So I'm gonna do a little bit of gameplay of my game, current state, the drone mode, not the rock hopper mode. So basically you can see here I have my game controller driver. You can see I have my game controller here. It's up on this stand, so it's kind of like a steering wheel. I've got lots of controls. I can sit here like this, I can kick back, and then I can take my hand off. I can have one hand on it. It's pretty good. I can play games that need a throttle. At present, Ace Racer's SP does not. It may make use of something like this in the future, but for the moment, it doesn't have that plan. So my game was originally developed around this game controller project that I have. And you can see here, I've got a 4-joystick version of it. Of course, what I have here is extrapolation on that, with more controls for proper space games, where you have a big spaceship and you need at least a throttle, and then in addition you want a lot more controls, so I have a lot more controls here. And what happened was, I was playing some other games, but they just didn't quite meet my demands. And my demands were for a particular kind of gameplay. Maybe right here on the page I try to show that. You can see I've got this picture. Oh, it's gonna load. And so this picture is like a drone, but for space. So I'll just pull up a picture here. So here's an FPV freestyle drone. Let me get some images. Look at that. Here we go. So here is a bunch of pictures of drones. And you can see that there's the cameras on it. Right here, there's a camera, and then there's the propellers, and this flies in the air. And the thing is no bigger than this controller most of the time. They can be smaller, they can be bigger. And I'll just try to throw some gameplay video of what a drone flies around like. Here's some freestyle in the morning. Okay. Oh, here's an epic freestyle pilot. The video's private. Here's a trench run. So this guy's flying around. So there are space drones. So there's this one drone called Spheres. And NASA took it to the International Space Station, and there's some pictures of them right here. And there's a picture of it all naked, and so there's thrusters on it and a CO2 bottle. And here's a brief video. Let me see if they show the meat and potatoes right away. It's from a while ago, 10 years ago now.
Fighting against us, who's trying to master the lightsaber. Yeah, we think they're pretty cool. They can fly around on their own. They can navigate around, they can accomplish a task They could talk to each other, and they could do everything necessary to avoid obstacles and work together to accomplish their different objectives. And
Okay. Here he is flying around. So it's kind of moving around a little bit. But of course they didn't race these like some kind of performance stunt quadcopter. But so my 4 joystick game controller is designed to give you enough joysticks to control a space drone in the same way that you would a quadcopter drone. That's what's going on there. So now I'm going to run my game. So here we have the game. And here's the main menu. And you can see the drone. And I don't have a good picture of the drone up close. Let me see if I got a nice picture here. Here's my drones. Here's my drones up close. So you see there's a camera, some thruster arrays. And here this one is bigger. It's a lunar lander. And you can see there's 3 cameras on the front. And there's another 2 cameras on the back. This one has 1 camera. And it's very small, so you'll always be able to point it just like a quadcopter drone. The other one is kind of supposed to be like a bigger drone that can land on the moon. And you can, well, you wouldn't land it on the moon. You would start land it on the moon. And then you would fly it around like a drone racing course. But because the suggestion is it's like a bigger vehicle, it'd be slower rotating, everything would happen a lot more slowly, and then you need to be upright a lot, and you still need to see down, you need to see up, but you need to be upright so that your powerful upright thrust can keep you off the gravity. So it needs more cameras to work. Move my game capture back up to the front. So here we are in the game, and here we are in the drone menu. Now here we are out at the space station. And so you can see I've got these toggleable. You can turn these off here in the middle. You don't want to see them, but I'm going to leave them on. And then now you can see the thrusters firing on those little holograms of the ship from different angles. So that way when I'm playing the game, I can see my thrusters firing, or if you were to make a video, which is what I'm going to do right now, then you can see the thrusters firing. And so then the other mode of the game is space mode. And in this mode, that's how you place the rings. So you can see my ship is different. It defies the laws of physics, but that's because it uses these warp engines here. And then I can look at it from different angles. So it uses these warp engines. So it defies the laws of physics. And you can move it around, and then you don't have to do anything. Whereas the other version of flight, the other mode of flight, is the drone, and it's stuck following the laws of physics. So I'm bouncing off of this ring right here, but if I go out here, you can see I'm just going to keep floating away. I have to actually thrust in order to stop floating away. So a little while ago, so here I'm flying down this tunnel I just made. So a little while ago, I made a little course coming to a stop. So I'll load my course, and it's titled After Drunk. It's the first one. Okay, so here we are. And now you can see my rings. And now I can fly around these rings. it's a little course. So you see, it's kind of like a drone racing course, just like the FPV drone racing, except you're out here in space with a little drone. And of course, in the game, I have different power levels. There's low. That's kind of more of a beginner thing, but I'm not actually sure what's realistic. So if I have a little CO2 bottle or a little propellant can right there, I'm gonna want to be able to fly for at least 2 minutes, just like a drone in a race. I'm not sure how much thrust you're gonna have to actually go fly around. The NASA drone has a smaller bottle than my depiction here. My drone has a bigger bottle and a lot less other mass associated with it. So it could be that you need to have such little thrust in order to have a reasonable flight time, especially early in the drone's development, what sort of future are we talking about? I don't know. So there's low, and so it's possible that this is actually a more accurate representation of if you made one, it would really fly like. But otherwise, here's normal. And normal is quite a bit faster than low, but this is kind of like an average game sensation. So I'd say that this is kind of an average sensation for acceleration that you might get from most games that you're going to play. Okay, it's pretty responsive. It's not hard to control, but you don't necessarily have to wait around too much. Oops, I bounced off that ring, so I control my spin. See Jupiter in the distance. You can see Jupiter reflecting off of these shiny rings, so that's pretty fun. And then I have higher speed, and that starts to get a little bit harder to control. Oops. Especially when you bounce into stuff. Let me get back on where I was. And then I have very high. And so this thing about it is that because these are going to be small, it might be that actually this is what it's more like to control. So it's really got a lot of rotational power on very high, and then relative to the surrounding objects, which are not that far apart, you get a lot of acceleration. And see, it's hard for me to control my rotation. So the thing about it is it's hard to say what exactly is going to be realistic, because I don't know, I can't do the math on that one. And then honestly, I don't know if anybody's ever had a chance to fly one of these around in real life. And drones, the quadcopter drones that run on the battery, they're closer to this right here. I mean, you got to turn them down to be able to control them, but the vehicles themselves, they can spin and rotate around. I mean, they have enough power to spin and rotate basically as fast as you can concern yourself with it. The limitation is the human, not the vehicle. So this VH, that might be more accurate to reality. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to restart. And you see that I restarted and that erased all the rings that I had loaded. And now it's time to make a course. So I'm going to switch my flight mode. And I'm going to find somewhere that I want to build a course. Maybe I'll come over here. And so here, the same thing, I can go faster. I want to get down to the other end, and then I want to slow it back down so I have control. And now I'm going to choose a ring. I like these right here. I'll just try to show this panel. I like this one, this ring right here. So you see I got a lot of highly reflective surfaces on this thing, and it makes a lot of glare, especially like if I switch to one of these reflective rings. Hey, what's going on here? My button quit working. this button. It's not working. That's alright. So I put a bunch of these reflective rings right here. And you can see there's quite a bit of glare. Oh jeez. Oh my goodness. You can see there's quite a bit of glare off them from certain angles. If I switch to the gold ring, you know, now it's quite a bit of glare. So I'm gonna play with my buttons not working. I'm gonna put some of these down. So I'm gonna come over here. Maybe I'll build it right here. Maybe I'll build it over on this other side. And I'll start right like this. So now I'm gonna place these rings. You can see it's kind of hard to tell exactly how far down I'm here, so I can change my camera angle a little bit. And then I have those other two angles. And there, I placed a ring. There it is. So now I'm gonna make a small course. Maybe I'll put another ring kind of low here. Maybe I'll put it right there. And then maybe I'll put another ring. Where am I going to put another ring? I kind of want to go up, actually. So I'll put one here, and then I'll put one. I like this move right here a lot. Are those good location? No, I don't like that. A better angle on it. That's okay. There we go. So now I'm gonna go from that ring, then I'm gonna go to this ring, and then I'm gonna come up here and go in this one, and then back down this one, and then I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back this way. I'm gonna go back over here. I'll put another ring right there. Okay. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rings. So actually, I might make just 6 rings. And actually, I really like 6 ring courses quite a bit. Alright. So let's go fly this around and see how I like it. So the plan is that I'm going to come down. I'm going to go do this one. So some people, they just like racing and they want to get one course. And they want to fly it till they're bleeding out of the mouth. And they want to get so ridiculously good at this one course that their time trial, they're trying over and over again to bring their time down by 1/10 of a second. And they're very consistent, and they fly the course every time the same. But I count myself among one of the kinds of people who isn't really looking to fly one single course until my ears bleed and I'm shaving off 1/10 of a second. I'm not saying that I wouldn't enjoy the activity, but I play a course for a little bit, and then what I want to do is I want to make another one and play that other one up way too fast. So I don't really want to have a game with 8 courses or even 20 courses. Even 20 courses is just not enough. In all honesty, if I play the course one time ever, I'm okay if I never play it again. I want a completely different one. And the elements, they can be similar all the time. And courses tend to be like this, like those 2 rings next to each other. I like that course element quite a bit. And then I do that course element all the time. Going way too fast every time right here. So, alright, talking. And I don't know how to play the course. But anyways, I would rather have a steady flow of new courses. So for me, the ideal game would be there's lots of players that make lots of courses, and then everybody can post their courses, and then every day there would be all new courses of varying quality. I mean, they don't all have to be amazing, you know. And then just every day you get to play new courses that no one's ever played before. They just got posted. One person made them. Some people, everybody gets to make them. And then, you know, for just 20 minutes, you can fly several laps around the course, switch to the next one, fly several laps around the course, switch to the next one. And I don't think of it as racing. I think of it as navigational challenge practice. So it's more like if every time you went to the grocery store, it was a different grocery store. And you had to first figure out where you're going, and then once you got going there, then you know you get down there, and then instead of having like every day the trip is the same, like your trip to work is the same every single day, you know, it would be more like a taxi cab driver, where every time somebody gets in the car, it's a different trip, you know, and you don't necessarily race. I mean, you try to improve your efficiency at all times. You're always trying to improve your efficiency. You're always trying to do better, but it's not so much that you reach a goal time. It's not so much that you shave tenths of a second. It's that you start experiencing a new environment, a new course, and then you do that a little bit, and then you move on. So I'm flying around this course. I'm satisfied with this one. So I'm going to save it. And then I'm going to stay right here. I'm not going to overwrite this. I'm going to call this scene something here. Press pause. Press save. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it video time. And then save it. And I'm just going to verify that it's saved. Video time. Let me try loading video time and see if it worked. Everything seems to still be where I left it. How many rings do I got here? So I appear to have fixed my error where it was deleting the rings every time. And I'd love to talk about that, but no big deal. Here we go. Alright, so now I want to make another course right here. So I'm going to use a different ring. These colored rings are good. I'll make this bright gold ring. Alright, so I'm going to do the same thing. Actually, I'm going to rotate it this way. Try to get my ring lined up the way I want it. And in place. That's good enough. Alright. So I'm going to put a ring right there. I'm going to go a little further. I'm going to come straight out. I'm going to cut across. I'm going to go all the way down here. This is going to be a long run. So you're going to X-wing down over there and try to make it down into a 90-degree turn. Where am I at? So I want to get right over the middle of this thing. Get right over the middle. I want to be kind of more, make sure that I'm nice and perpendicular. Good enough anyway. I feel pretty good about that. Okay. So I'm gonna fly from here down to, well, I'm gonna go one of these directions, probably go both in the long run. So I'm gonna go far. So I'm gonna go over to this thing here. I'm gonna go right to the top. Right to the top of this. Make sure my angle, what's going on here? A little more straight. Right there. Good enough. Alright. So I'm gonna come flying through there. That's when I'm gonna turn it around. I'm gonna come back this way. No, I'm gonna go down. I'm right off to the top of this one. Pretty good. Right there. Oh no. Oh, that's okay. Looks good. So, we're gonna come through this one. We're gonna come all this in. It'll be a huge loop around. Oh my goodness. Can't see where I'm at. So used to looking at the FPV camera. And I can just make it another simple one. But I don't want to do that. I do. Make it another simple one. Put this right in the middle. And then I'm going to break it up. Oh jeez. Like that. I'm going to break it up right here. With one of these right here. Oh, maybe I'll just do one. Maybe I'll do another one a little closer. A little bit of a slalom on that. Let's try it out. So let me get out of here. So we've got a steep turn. Always got to hit the brakes. Really shiny. Hard to see. Now this one I can go ripping down towards. I don't have to hit the brakes so early. Because I can go through here and then kind of make my curvature. So now you really have to worry about slowing down early enough. That's a major part of the Newtonian thrust on a hoop traversing is that you got to make sure that you start hitting the brakes early enough. And that's one of the major complaints about this kind of game, that's why a lot of people don't like it. because they don't want to do that. I don't know. So I'll go through this one, and then I'll go this way. Gotta be kind of steep, so I make the hoop. And then I'll go back this way. And now down here, and that's the course. So I got 2 courses on this map. Hopefully my computer doesn't crash. It doesn't matter if I crash my ship. It matters if I crash my computer though, because then I won't have this course anymore. But let me just get around it again to make sure I want to keep it. Kind of a risk. This is a long course. This might be better at higher speed. But actually it's good. I like practicing the long slowdowns. You want to keep going further and further. Try to get a good sense of exactly when you need to start hitting the brakes. So I'm gonna save this real quick, and then I'll show you something. So it still says video time, so I'm gonna save it. Let me make sure that it loads correctly. For a little while, it wasn't saving my rings, but I think what's going on is that floating point values in computers aren't where you can always expect their complete floating point value to be the same. So every time the computer stores and loads a floating point value, it may actually be, it might be different from the original floating point value that you put in there, because it calculates it. The number that comes out might be slightly different. So when it would save the rings, when it was saving my rings, it was comparing the original placement with floating point numbers stored in a list that had already been converted by the computer one time. So I was losing some resolution. So then what I did was I just found a post on the internet where they truncated it with some little math equation, and so I put that math equation onto my comparison, so that it only compares the decimal points out to 2 places. For the most part, unless your rings are really stacked up on top of each other, it should never happen that any 2 other rings would have the same position up to 2 decimal places. So that save system might have to change in the future anyway, when it's time for me to figure out how to connect up. At the moment, I can save, I can delete the ring, but I can't connect up to it and then move it around. If I delete it and then try to reposition and then place it, it's a little harder to see still. I would rather be able to to fly into it, press a button, and then it just connects to my ship so that as I move the ship, the ring moves. But I haven't figured out how to do that yet. It should be easy, but I'm the worst programmer alive. So, presently in the game, there's not a way to save, there's not a way to share your levels built into the game. And you can't choose where the files get saved to. But, as it happens, you can still share your files. So this tutorial set that I followed on Unity, it uses the app data file path, and a lot of games work the same kind of way. They have an app data file path so that if you change the volume settings or if you save your character's health, then there's like an app data file path and you can find it, and all your games might be in there. So because it's not really for the user to mess with, it's a hidden file. So what you have to do is first you have to view, and then you have to show the hidden items. So you can see there, you go to the view, and then you can show hidden items. Once you can see the hidden items, you can go to users, you can go to yourself, and then here's app data. So app data is where these other games are all here. And then you have to go to local low in this case. So local and local low. And I don't know what any of this stuff does, but local low. And you see there's all these different games in here. All these different games that I've played. It makes a file in here. And actually sometimes when your game gets goofy and you're trying to get customer support, they'll tell you to come here and delete this folder, because it might be this folder and the game is referencing it and there's something goofed up in the folder. So because I'm the developer of this game, right now it says TSM space, which is me, and here's the game, and so here's all the levels right here. And so you should be able to take these files, copy them to another directory, or just attach them to an email or upload it to the internet. And then if I download that file, then I just need to put it in this folder, in the same folder, and then when my game searches for any files in this folder, it should pop up with the rest of them, any files that have the .crs. So if you put .crs on another kind of file, it'll probably show up in my search, but you need it to be one of the correct save files. These files are all binary. You can't read them. It's just a bunch of garble. But the other thing too is if you're playing the game and you're saving files and you're like, I'm gonna get rid of this stuff, you would have to come here to delete it for now. There's no way to delete it in the game. So I don't need a lot of this stuff, but oops. So I'll just delete all that stuff. Then it'll be a little cleaner when I try to look at the games. All that's just when I popped rings up so that I could see if it saves them or not, because it wasn't saving them. And that's my game, and there was some playtime of it, and I showed you a quadcopter at the beginning to kind of paint the picture of what I'm going for, except it's in space. So, for example, an objective I would have is to see a show like The Expanse. Have space drones, space drone racing, where people get out there and they have one of my controllers. So the characters in the experience could show up with a controller that lets them play the space drone, and then they can race drones when they're kids and get ridiculously good at being pilots. Just get ridiculously good. They could race just like FPV racing drones. And I actually have an open source story project, which I might as well throw up on the screen. Here we go. So somebody said, hey, yeah, why not try to use GitHub for it? So GitHub is for open source software development. My game is not open source. Somebody gave me the base project, so I may put my game open source in the future, but for now, I have somebody's base project that I'm building on, so it's not really mine to share, and I'm sure that there's no problem with me sharing it, and there's other examples, and I'm sure that the person who gave that to me wouldn't even think twice. Like, they would be like, what are you talking about? Why would you even think that in the first place? But first of all, my game is not popular. There's nobody who plays it but me, and nobody wants to make that kind of game but me. I'm the first one to ever make the space drone racing game. There's another game called Fly Dangerous, which does have the hoop racing, but they don't have a map editor, and they don't allow you to have different kinds of ring and different shapes of ring, and they don't plan to, and they won't let you change the color, and they don't plan to. And it's not really for Newtonian. It's a different game. It's based on the flight model of Elite Dangerous, and incidentally, you can change the settings to get your Newtonian experience, but it's not optimal. It's not what the game is for. They don't plan to make it better. They don't plan to include more features for that kind of activity. At any rate, that game is open source, and so really there's a much more professional example. And really, I never took anything out of that game, because to me it's a bunch of spaghetti. It's these crazy programmers. They say, no, you have to make it easy to read, and then they make it harder to read. You know, and if your code was just all in one place so you could see the machine, you know, if I went to the auto parts store, it's going to take me a long time to figure out how a car works. But if I have a car where all the parts are all in one place and I can see them exactly how they fit together, I can understand how a car works in seconds. And I don't understand, because that's what code is like. Code is easier to understand when you package code into larger clumps so that all of the functions are all there together. And that's not what people do. They say it's unprofessional, and they say it's professional to make it easier to read, because now you can read it. And I don't follow. No, that's crazy talk to me. It sounds like they're lying right through their teeth every day, all day, because when I look at their projects, it's ridiculous. It's not easy to read. It's word spaghetti. They are making spaghetti code. So every program is like that. But anyways, all of the guts that you would need to make your spaceship work like mine does, they probably have a better version of it anyway. So you could go there and figure out how it works. I mean, eventually. I doubt that it would happen right away unless you're already a programmer. But I think actually if I posted mine, you'd figure it out in minutes, because that's a little bit easier, because it's not all kind of spaghetti. It's just lumps of code in one place that all functions together, and it's like an engine already assembled. So anyways, here's my open source story project, and you can see my picture. You can see my other picture. And the idea is that the goal of this project is to create an open source story platform for the purpose of developing some plot options and character options for the enrichment of a game universe or multiple game universes. So the world is your oyster. Of course, normal story formats i.e., not for the purpose of games, are also welcome. And so you could, in theory, come and be interested in a science fiction story and think that having drone racing in your science fiction story is interesting and a unique angle, and then I would love to have your story contributed up here in the files. And then there would just be a link to your draft, and then if you had another project on here, then it would also be able to link to your project there. And then this project is not designed to control a plot or achieve a specific plot goal other than to include space drone racing. The idea is that any ideas that correlate or relate in whichever way could all be part of this universe of universes. And then some stories might have some ideas and other stories might have other ideas, and then you could be inspired by them and mishmash them together and ultimately result in a much more significant, a much better story. I mean, I'm not trying to say that people can't think of good stories, but in the long run, the better story is the one where more people contributed to it and more development happened on it. So if more people can contribute, so here's some. Where's the ding? Okay, here we go. So, one idea is that there's a giant spin station, and normally the station spins for gravity, but so a lot of these spin stations in science fiction have the ships dock to the middle of the station. There's not that much space in the middle, and then you have to make your ship be spinning to dock to it. That's not very good. What you really want is for neither ship to be spinning, or for example the ISS, you don't want that kind of extra motion. You want both objects to be as basically still as they can, and then you want to dock. So if you have a large ship who's going to come and dock to this station, you don't want that ship to take up the whole middle. And your station is probably already modular. So what you would need to do is de-spin the station. It's spinning for gravity, so you need to quit the station from spinning. And then once it stopped spinning, then you can dock the ship to the space station. But now it won't be in balance, because before you had your weight evenly distributed. Now you have this giant ship on one side, so it's not going to spin with a good balance. So it's modular, so you need to move your modules around a little bit to rebalance the situation. And this all takes time. And there's all kinds of obstacles around the space station, maybe, that people would love to fly their drones around, but most of the time there's gravity, so they don't get to do it. But whenever they have a large object they're going to dock with, there's an amount of time where everything has to grind to a halt. Nobody can do any normal work. Everybody has to wait, and then they're going to dock. And then after they dock, they're going to rearrange all the modules of the space station around so you have good balance. And it could take hours or even longer. It could take days. So during this time, there's no gravity. There's no spin gravity on this giant spin station. Not giant, but reasonably large spin station, because everybody has to wait for all of the balancing to get done, then they can start spinning it up again. During this time, everybody would get to race their drones around all of the obstacles, both inside and outside of the station, that they always wish they could race around, but they would never get to. So that's kind of one of the ideas here. And then, you know, it would be a televised event, and maybe even you would have people coming special just to that place just because it's going to be so exciting that they're going to be able to have races there. And the racing teams would coordinate their activities around these special times when large freighters are going to dock to the space station. Then all the racers are going to take their little ships out there. Their teams are going to bring the racers out there just to be there when it happens, because it's the only time that you'll be able to be around that particular space station and have the races is when they're going to de-spin it, and they normally wouldn't be able to do that unless there's a big reason for them to do it already. Not only that, but when you're rearranging the modules, you might make new obstacles that wouldn't otherwise be there. And again, these drones could be small, like a 12-gram CO2 cartridge could probably have tiny little thrusters and a tiny little camera, and then you could have 2 minutes of flight time with it, and you could do that right inside of your spaceship, you know, right inside of a fairly small space. If I had just this little room, if I had some hoops that were like this big, and I had a drone that was like that big, and it ran on a 12-gram CO2 cartridge, and it had really small thrusters so that it didn't have that much power, but maybe I would be able to get 2 minutes of flight time out of it, and then I could just put 12 grams in there, fly my little drone around. Or I could run an air compressor and have a small bottle, since I'm inside of the space, just compress up the air, and then I could fill my bottle over and over again, get 2 little minutes, put the other one on, fill it up while I'm using the other one, and instead of changing batteries like an FPV drone, I change my little bottle, and then when it's time to go outside, you would get the big drones with the big bottles and more flight time, and then you would have inflatable hoops, inflatable courses that you could set up. Alright, that is a beast of a video. So if anybody actually watched that, thank you for watching. I hope that you like my game. I hope you try it out, and I hope that you like my story ideas and contribute your own plot points and character ideas and situations where racing could happen in a civilian world, in the deep space future, or even a near term future. And I hope that millions of people get involved in space drone racing and get to play the simulator, and there's lots of people making content that I can enjoy. Alright, thank you very much.